Good evening. This is Rahul Reddy. Reddy Neumann PC is live every week, Tuesday at 5 p.m. Central Time. Emily, what do you have today?
Thanks for joining us this week. We're going to be talking about the new forms that have to be used starting on Monday, what's different about these forms, and make sure you're aware of all the specifics on when you can keep using the old form and when you have to start using the new version. This does impact employment-based immigrants and non-immigrants. We also want to make sure everyone is aware that employers will need to start creating their MyUSCIS account on Monday for the upcoming H-1B lottery. The whole new process begins on Monday, really begins on March 1st, but you can actually access the employer account starting on Monday. And also, because of all of these changes that are happening due to the public charge rule, the new forms that are coming out, there's a new form called the I-944 form, which is going to be required for every I-485 adjustment of status applicant. Part of that form requires you to submit your credit report and your tax transcripts. And so I want to make sure that everyone is aware of how to get those documents because it might not be something you're familiar with if you didn't grow up here in the U.S.
Well, even if you've grown up in the U.S. also, it's not easy to get those things. Emily, you said new forms. There are like 1,000 forms, and so there's only 3 or 4 forms that changed. But how about the employment-based immigration? What is affected in the
Yeah, unfortunately, employment-based immigration is the one that's impacted quite a bit. So the I-129 form, which is used for all H1, L1, some TNs, some E3s,
O1, P1,
OP, like every letter in the alphabet you can think of that's an employment-based visa, a temporary work visa, requires this form. And so that form has a new version. The I-539 application, which is also used by
H4, F1, L2s,
TD, E3D, all the dependents that are filed along with their spouses, and the I-129, I-539, and the I-485 as well as a new version of the form. So what are the specifics here? Basically, these forms have added new questions related to the public charge that basically say, have you used any of the following public benefits? And you just check yes or no. If you check yes, you have to provide information and documentation. So I would expect that the majority of employment-based non-immigrants who are filling out this I-129 and I-539 form are going to be checking no to all of those because they generally do not use public benefits. So this new form, anything postmarked after February 24th, which is Monday, has to be submitted on the new version of these forms that have these extra questions. So if you are just getting started on your H1 extension this week, for example, most likely that your employer will need to be using the new version of the form. Your spouse will need to be signing the new version of the form because you won't be filing before February 24th. So in our office, we're planning on Friday of this week being the last day that we're mailing out anything with the old version of the form, and starting on Monday, we'll be using the new version of the form for all of that. Now, the weird thing here is Illinois. So if your company is located in Illinois, you continue to use the old version of the form.
Can they not use the new form?
No. So, and then for the I-539, if you live in Illinois, you use the old version of the form. So for the I-129, if you live in Illinois but your employer is based outside of Illinois, you still have to use the new form. For the I-539, if your employer's in Illinois but you're not in Illinois, you still have to use the new form.
So Emily, the major problem that will occur with the employment-based, mostly these things will be handled by your employer, the lawyers, but I would say that this is going to cause a lot of delay in already existing H4 applications, L2 applications, and also it's going to cause a lot of delay for the H1 applications unless they're doing in premium processing. These additional information what they're requesting, most probably none, based on my experience of 23 years of practicing immigration law, I would say that less than 0.1, I would say 0.1% of the people out of every 1,000, maybe one person might be affected by it, but the burden for all the people to bear it, to go through the process of the paperwork, is going to be humongous. Emily, now you pointed out this new form called I-944. This is a form that you said that when they file for the green card application 485, for the family-based and employment-based, you need to include this form. Is it, basic small information, what it has been added in the I-129 or I-539, or is it like a extensive form? What are the documents that would require in this?
Yeah, this is a very extensive form. It's not just a matter of answering the public charge questions like that are on the I-129 and I-539. It's an 18-page form that goes through all of your income of your household, all of the assets of the household, all of the liabilities of the household, credit report, credit score, and it asks for all that information, and then you have to document all that information. So if you mentioned that one of your assets is your home, you have to provide documentation that you own the home, plus documentation of whatever the mortgage amount is on that home, because that's a liability. So now you're going to be submitting your deed, your mortgage statement, possibly your 401k statements. You have to submit proof that you have health insurance, so they either want a copy of your health insurance policy or a letter from your employer confirming that you're covered under their policy. It just goes on and on and on.
Emily, wait a minute. I remember that when I applied for the loan in 2016, I filled all this thing out to get a loan when I'm moving from one home to another home. I filled all that information, and they told to submit the copy of the income tax returns, which I submitted the copy of the income tax returns, and they came back and my loan application was rejected. You know why? Because the income tax returns that I submitted are different than the transcripts of the tax returns that they got it from the IRS. It so happens that I sent the draft what was given by the accountant, and the final draft and the actual filing. There is about $1,000 difference between the draft and the actual one. Since I did not submit they said that I tried to deceive them and they rejected my loan application. And later on, I found out, whenever there is somebody says to submit the income tax returns, I never submit what the accountant gives. I go to the IRS, I get the IRS, I can fill that information out, I can download the income tax returns then and them there itself. Or they were in mail, and the IRS is very good though compared to what previously they were. And they mail that application and they send it. So what do you suggest to people right now?
Yeah, so you actually are required to get your tax return transcript from the most recent year to submit with this I-944.
Transcript is from the IRS.
From the IRS.
Not what you submitted.
Correct. So submitting a copy of your tax return that you created and filed is not sufficient. They need the actual transcript issued by the IRS.
And you can go to irs.gov and you can fill a lot of information out there. You will get all tax returns from past at least 3 to 4 years for sure you can get it.
Yeah, so one thing to be aware of with that, it's great if you can do the online version to request the transcript because you get it instantaneously. But to do that, you have to have a mortgage or a car loan or a credit card to be able to pull that from their online system. If you don't have one of those where you have like a clean credit history, then you actually have to request your transcript by mail, and it takes 10 to 15 days for them to mail it back to you. So now you have to calculate that time
if there is anybody who is preparing to file an adjustment of status though, well in advance, they need to pull all this information out. Also, you said, Emily, that they need a credit score. I would suggest that there is a thing called Credit Karma that I use. It's free and you can get the credit score from there. I would strongly recommend people to log in, for those people who are intending to file the green card application, to log in the credit information. And get
yeah, so one good thing about the credit report that you have to submit is the government allows you to get a free one each year from each government agency. So there's 3 different agencies that issue these credit reports: Experian, TransUnion, and Equifax. So there is one government website where you can get those for free. There's a lot of other websites that look just like the government website that try to make you pay for them, but they are free to get once a year. So you go to annualcreditreport.com. That's the only official government website where you can get them for free. From there, you can fill out all of your information online, and they will let you download it right then and there. But again, if you don't have a mortgage, or you don't have a credit card, or you don't have a car payment, good for you.
What
Those are all
about the
good
people
things.
who don't have Social Security number?
Exactly.
In fact, I just filed an application for a 4-year-old kid today in the I-130 and 485 application. Do they still need to get the 4-year-old kid also, all what you're speaking about?
Yes. Yeah, so if you don't have those things and can't do it online, you have to go the paper route, mail in your request for your free credit report, and again, it takes maybe 2 weeks to get that back. And yes, you're right, for each 485 applicant, so this is for the main applicant, the employment-based person who's being sponsored and has the job, the spouse, and each kid filing the 485, they need to fill out this I-944 form for themselves, and then they need to pull their credit report and their credit score.
Really?
Now, if they're a 4-year-old kid and don't have one, then you can instead submit an explanation saying you don't have one, or you have to print a letter from the credit reporting agency saying this person has no score. So just bear all of that in mind if you are planning to file your 485. If your priority date becomes current, watch that visa bulletin. It comes out 2 weeks before the month. So you will know 2 weeks before the filing window opens if your priority date will be current. And you should immediately start getting that credit report and your credit score and your tax transcripts so that you'll be ready to file within the month.
Pretty soon we're going to publish an article at rnlawgroup.com. What are the steps that you need? What documents are required? So please tune in to RN Law Group and subscribe to the news section of Immigration Girl. We'll update the information. We will try to see how the immigration is acting on this, and based on that we will write an article. So it might take a little bit of time for us to see how the immigration is reacting to all these things, if they're taking everything or if they're giving an exemption. If the person meets the requirement with the basic income, do we still need to list all those other assets, cars, shoes, socks, and all those things?
Yeah.
So that part is a little bit confusing to me. Why do we need to list the shoes, socks, and cars when he is meeting the requirement with the income? So we need to study. A lot of times, previously when we used to file the applications, he meets the requirement with the money, and he doesn't, his assets and loans are less of, his assets are still extra, but I normally don't list them. It's not needed. His income is enough. So probably we will try to update it practically what you can do, but please get tuned into RN Law Group so that you can get that information. Emily, you said a big news. The employer can create the accounts starting Monday. That means, which is February 24th.
Yeah.
So they can file the they can submit the applications, or they can enroll it. What can they do, and how can they do it?
Yeah, so the only thing they can do from Monday is create their My USCIS account. So every single employer who intends to submit a registration on behalf of a potential H-1B worker has to create this My USCIS account. It can only be done online, and that becomes available on Monday. My USCIS is the name of that account. They cannot submit the registrations until March 1st, which is the following Sunday at 11 a.m. Central Time. USCIS has already said, please don't log in and submit your registrations at 11 a.m. Central Time on Sunday, March 1st, because you might crash the system. They want to spread it out over the whole 20 days. So I would, take your time. I plan on doing mine at night so that I don't have to compete with other people for bandwidth on their server, or however this whole thing is going to work.
But it's not like a H3 application, first come, first serve basis, Emily.
Correct. That's the good thing, is we're not dealing with the H-2B lottery, which was a big mess up on New Year's Eve, not this past year, but the year before, where they went by the millisecond rule. So they put the applications in order of filing by millisecond. They went down to the millisecond to see what order the applications go in.
So
and
the
then
whole
they
immigration
selected-
lawyers are right in front of the computer instead of celebrating the New Year. And the New Year based on the New York time, not Eastern time, not based on the Central time, so which is actually 11.
Yeah.
And then what happened?
And then the whole system crashed and people weren't able to submit their applications.
So
It
there
was
is
a
nothing
big-
like that for at this
Right.
point of time. I mean, we don't have to file on March 1st itself. We can file on March 10th also, and the last date to file is March
20th.
20th. So it doesn't have to, all the 200 plus thousand people don't have to file it on March 1st. It doesn't give any advantage to file on March 1st or March 10th or March 15th, so it will be fine. Obviously, I would not recommend people to go all the way to March 20th, but definitely will try to do it before so they can file the application. So they can register right now, they can enter the data right now, but they cannot submit it until.
No, they can't register and they can't submit, they can't enter the data either. The
So-
only thing they can do is create the account starting Monday,
Oh, so create the account and then everything will be open on
March 1st.
March 1st. So the details cannot be entered right now.
Correct.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. And if your employer is working with an attorney on this, it's kind of a complicated situation. The attorney will also have their own My USCIS account, which I found out today. I'm locked out of mine, so I'm working on getting that. But the attorney will be first entering the registrations in the attorney's account, creating a G28 form in the attorney's account, which allows the employer to confirm that the attorney actually represents the company. And then the attorney doesn't get to actually submit the registrations. They will then send a code to the employer. The employer will log into the employer's My USCIS account, enter that code, review the G28, review the registrations that are there, and then authorize them to be submitted. So that's how this is going to work back and forth between the attorney and the employer. I expect glitches.
Yeah, but since the time is there between March 1st and March 20th, though, I think so we'll have time to adjust it. It's not like you have to submit in the next 5 minutes, you have to prepare it and submit. So if there is anything that doesn't go through, we have enough time. And I'm expecting at least we will receive a confirmation that, yes, this application has been submitted. Let's go to the questions, Q&As. I will try to answer as much as possible. Question came from Karthik is that, what are the changes made in the I-9 form, Emily, other than the date?
I think that's really the main thing. I think they added an option for certain countries that didn't exist before. I couldn't tell you what they are, unfortunately, but they're very minor changes. It's really just you have to make sure you're using the new edition date. The form itself is basically the same.
Vijay Prakash is asking question. He is got an offer in Texas right now. He wants to file a 485J supplement. Well, you can how can he reach us? You can contact us at info@RN Law Group, Vijay Prakash, and we will be able to guide you, help you on that.
Kirti from Facebook, her husband went for H-1 stamping and got stuck in administrative processing, received a 221G, already submitted the requested documents but hasn't received an update and wants to know if he can go for H-4 stamping instead. So yes, you do have that option, assuming that the reason for the administrative processing is not due to anything fraud or misrepresentation that would also impact the H-4. If it's just based on the employer or the job offer or they're looking into the client or that sort of thing, there's nothing stopping him from going for H-4 stamping.
Ms. Das has this question. Her brother is a U.S. citizen. She already has an I-140 approval. Can she apply for the sibling-based green card? Can she continue working on the H-1B? The answer is yes, you can continue working on the H-1B even though your sibling filed an I-130 application. Can she leave the H-1B and because the brother filed an I-130 application, does she have to maintain the H-1B or can she leave the H-1B? No, you have to maintain the H-1B. Until the priority date becomes current for your brother's filing to the sister, you have to maintain the legal status on H-1B. Otherwise, you can't even get a green card. You have to maintain the H-1B. Once it becomes current, you can file the 485 application. Then it's up to you if you want to maintain the status or not until you get a green card.
A couple questions on the registration process. One person wants to know if there's any fee involved. Yes, the employer does have to pay a $10 fee for each individual that they're registering. Another person wanted to know if the attorney can be selected after the registration is done and at the time of filing the petition. Yes, that can be done as well. Another wanted to know how it works when an employer outsources all their immigration work to an attorney. Will the attorney, how does that work with these accounts? Well, the employer still has to create this account, and it's because the attorney can only start the registration process. It's the employer that has to verify that they have reviewed each person and that they intend to sponsor each of those people. The attorney cannot do that on behalf of a company. Only the employer can do that. So the employer will have to have their own personal MyUSCIS account.
Jewel has this question that his H-1B got picked up in 2019, decision is still pending. Can he apply the H-4 EAD? One thing is that I don't know why you are waiting for the H-1B lottery decision. You can do premium processing. That will get the decision fast, and then you can move on to another thing if that gets denied. No reason for you to keep on prolonging that one. I would recommend that you should do the premium processing. Yes, it's up to you. If you want to get a H-4 EAD, you can apply for it. There are some pluses and minuses for it. But at this point of time, I strongly recommend that you do premium processing so that you avoid all the problems that you're facing right now.
Question from Facebook regarding I-140 validity. So does an I-140 expire? If I can leave, can I work in another country and then later use that I-140 to get an H-1B and come back? So yes, you can do that. The I-140 does not expire. As long as it's been approved for at least 180 days, even if that I-140 gets withdrawn because you left the company, you can still use that I-140 to get H-1Bs in the future through consular processing without having to go through the lottery again.
Arvind asked this question from YouTube. He wants to file a H-1B extension in normal processing. Is it a bad decision? Yes, absolutely bad decision. Here is the reason though. We would like your decision to be coming, the H-1B extension decision to be coming before your I-94 expires. Nowadays, the processing time is taking about 8 months. So by the time you get the decision, your I-94 expires. So if you get the denial, you would not have much options. So that's the reason why you need to get the extension before your I-94 expires. And if you get a denial, you can always file one more application and get an extension done again. So that second chance will not be there, especially with about 25% of denial rating right now. You may want to get the decision before your I-94 expires.
Sandeep from Facebook wants to know if there's any way to expedite the H-4 and EAD applications because the processing times are very long to get the approval. So we've been noticing this problem ever since the biometrics requirement was put into place last March, about a year ago. USCIS started separating the I-539 from the I-129 petition, and processing times just ballooned from there. We tried expedite requests. Those always get denied. We tried going for congressional assistance or assistance from the senator's office. They just respond to the senator saying the case is pending within normal processing time. There's nothing that can be done. The only thing we have found that works to expedite the H-4 and the EAD approval is to file a lawsuit. We file federal court litigation every 2 weeks on Fridays. We group together large groups of H-4 and EAD applicants and L-2 and EAD applicants that have been waiting for their applications to be approved. We file one lawsuit on behalf of all of them. And generally we've seen within 60 days of filing our lawsuit, they receive their approvals. It's definitely a faster processing than what is reported by USCIS on their current processing times on the website.
Ram Singh has this question. He is an L1 in the 5th year and his I-140 got approved under EB1C category. His priority date is not moving. Can he stay beyond 7 years? Well, on L1A, you cannot stay beyond 7 years, Ram. However, you may want to apply for the H-1B. Once you get the H-1B in the lottery, yes, you can stay however much time you want to because you have your I-140 approval, so you don't have the limitation of 6 years on H-1B and L1 combined. So I would strongly advise that you try to move to you try to move to the H-1B. Ram also has this question, can he file an adjustment of status while outside the United States? Yes, you can. It's not called adjustment of status, it's called consular processing. You can do that. I would rather want you to do I-824, it's called following to join, sending the I-140 notice to the U.S. consulate. You can process it right now. It's a strategically advantage point to have an I-824 that's called to send the I-140 approval to the consulate, and the whole process is called consular processing. You can do that if your company cooperates. That probably is a better method. After you leave the country, you can do that process.
Pranay from Facebook wants to know if, when changing jobs, if you can start working for the new employer without actually waiting for the receipt number. So that's a good question, and it really depends on the company, because there's the regulation for the H-1 transfer simply says you can begin work for the new employer upon the filing of a transfer petition, a properly filed non-frivolous transfer petition. Well, so once it's filed, it can take 2 weeks to get the receipt notice. So technically you are supposed to be allowed to work upon the filing once it's received by USCIS. However, some employers want to ask you to wait until they get the receipt number because they have to fill out the I-9 form, and they use that receipt number on the I-9 form. And also, if something goes wrong with the submission of the application, let's say your FedEx delivery showed it was delivered on Monday, but the application was rejected for some reason. Maybe there was a problem with a filing fee check, maybe a signature was missed, maybe a box was left blank. They mail the whole thing back 2 weeks later. You've already started working for the company. Now you've been working without authorization. So I think it's a good practice to wait until the actual receipt notice has been received in order to start to work for the new company.
Navin has this question, but I don't have an answer for him, is that his marriage has been declared null and void. Does he need to say single or divorced on the DS-160? I know for sure in the 485, in the I-130 applications though, it's very clearly, they said, you need to mention even if your marriage has been nullified, you still need to mention that you were married before. But I don't know the exact wording in DS-160. I can't remember the exact wording in DS-160. Navin, I will try to find out that. You may want to come. We do have a daily conference call. If you come for tomorrow's conference call or any other conference call by tomorrow, I'll try to get that answer. We do have a daily conference call. You can come. But at this point of time, I don't know how the wording of the question is there. But I know in 485, in the I-130 application, it's clearly mentioned that you have to mention all those marriages.
Chandu from YouTube wants to know if you need the LCA for registering the H-1B in the lottery this year. So no, it's not mandatory to have the LCA in place at the time the registration is submitted through the electronic filing process. You just need to have the LCA in place at the time that you're filing the actual petition if you're selected. There are some advantages of working on the LCA and getting it early, and that is you're avoiding the rush. We find every year that the closer we get to April 1st, the longer LCAs take to get certified because everyone's trying to get them last minute. And it also is helpful if you are an F1 student with your OPT expiring maybe in early April. You have to be aware that even though the filing window is April 1st to June 30th for filing the petition, if your OPT is expiring and you want the cap gap extension, you actually have to file before your OPT expires. So for people with an OPT expiring sometime in April, it may be beneficial to have the LCA and maybe even start preparing the petition before the lottery process, before you know you were selected, to avoid the rush and make sure that you get it filed in time before your OPT expires.
Sakshi has this question, can we hire an attorney to file a H-1B even though at the time when the lottery is picked up, the lawyer did not file it in the lottery? Yes, Sakshi, you can hire a lawyer to file a H-1B. That's what a lot of employers are doing right now, especially the employers who are more familiar with the process. They're doing it by themselves because not a lot of information is required there. And once they get picked up in the lottery, they're proceeding towards going to the lawyer. So you can do that, absolutely no problem. Another question that came up from Vivek from YouTube is that can you stay beyond 240 days if the L1 extension timeline is pending? The answer is yes. You can stay in United States beyond 240 days. If the request for the L1 extension is beyond the 240 days, you can stay, but you cannot work. But my question to you is that why not do premium processing? Avoid this one. Premium processing is there right now. Try to avoid it, premium processing. But to answer legally your question, yes, you can stay beyond 240 days.
Jatine from Facebook, his wife is on L2, but she also has an H-1B that's been approved for consular processing, but it's already set to expire this year. He wants to know if the H-1 can be extended without having to get the visa stamp first. So we have done this before many times when it's with the same employer. So the same employer can file an H-1 extension of a consular process H-1 approval and have it be not subject to the cap in order to get more time to allow for your wife to actually get the visa stamp and come back in.
Kapil has, well, let me go to the question that came from Facebook is that, can I file multiple H-1Bs from different employers? You want to go to jail? Yes. That's the simple answer. There are so many employers that have been put in jail, or they're going to the criminal prosecution, that I filed duplicate application in 2016. The way this administration is planning and encouraging is to file the duplicate applications so that they can throw all the people out of the country. We have seen so many times, and this time when they did offer the lottery system, we commented very much about this fraud, how it's going on. They did not address that issue. At least take the money of the people, the filing fees, and return the filing fees if it's not selected in the lottery. They didn't adhere to any of those things. This $10 thing, what Emily is speaking about, a lot of people are expected to commit fraud, and that's the plan of this administration, that you file the duplicate, and we know where the second application comes from. Believe me, you didn't put the name, but I know where the second application. The second application is always fraudulent application. They know and they will track it. And the problem with us is that they don't deny it initially. What they do is that they approve it and tell the Congress they approved 65,000 plus 20,000 H-1Bs. And then they go back and revoke those H-1Bs so that they destroy you, they destroy everybody, and they use a number unnecessarily, and this is a very bad thing. Kapil Sharma has this interesting question. When is the ICE, why are the USCIS and ICE waiting to close the day one CPT schools?
That's a good question. I think they're trying to get as many
people as possible. They are trying to get as many people as possible, Kapil, and they want to get them out of this country at one point of time. I know a lot of people will say there are a lot of day one CPT universities. There are not a lot of day one CPT universities. There are only 8 universities that I am aware of, and there may be a little bit more than that. There are total 9,000 educational institutions. Out of them, only 8 are issuing the day one CPT. That is an indication there is something wrong with these universities. We've been advising a lot of people, don't join these day one CPTs. And there are 2 universities that the university authorities are in jail right now. One is Silicon Valley University and one is Tri-Valley University. There are 2 more universities which were being created by the ICE and USCIS. They're fake universities created by the government to lure the people into it and then kick all of them out. And that was University of Northern New Jersey, which they exposed it in 2016. And in 2016 itself, they started University of Farmington, which they exposed in February of 2019. There are a couple of more universities, and I want to name those universities. Is that Cumberland and Campbellsville University. I don't know how they are issuing the day one CPTs. My only thing is that they are trying to expose all these universities at one point of time and drive them out. They're denying the change of status for these people. They're denying the port of entry for these people, and they're also denying their visas when they go to visas, and still they're not closing them, and that surprises when you're denying their entry, denying them in the change of status, why are you allowing the school? It is just, we think, so that they want to get all of them together and then expose them. It's like the way, the fish, you don't catch, you wait, more fish come in. At one time, you pull the whole net out. Instead of you put a net there, you catch it, you catch one or two fish, the other fish doesn't come in. You wait, all the fish come in, you pull it out. That's what I'm thinking.
Manny from YouTube says that his H-1B premium processing change of employer application has been approved, but the H-4 for his wife and children is yet to be approved. Can the spouse and child continue to be in the U.S.? The answer is yes. So as long as their H-4 applications were timely filed before the current H-4 expired, they're in a period of authorized stay based on that pending H-4 extension, and they can stay in the country the entire time it's pending.
Sam from YouTube has this question, this litigation thing, what Emily is speaking about. Even L2 EADs are eligible, especially he filed an application in December. Yes, what it requires for the litigation is that the L2 EAD or H4 EAD must have been pending for more than 30 days, because that's what the law says, that they're supposed to adjudicate in 30 days. Yes, you can file the litigation. We do club together, we file out, we take approximately 50 cases every other week and file it in the court to get it adjudicated faster.
Chetan wants to know if a spouse can apply for the H-4 and the EAD right after the CAP petition has been approved, or if she needs to wait until the change of status actually kicks in on October 1st. That's a good question. So the good thing with the change of status, the I-539, with the change of status to H-4, is you can specify the start date that you want. So you could file that in April, May, or June, for example, and request an October 1st start date for the H-4 status to take effect. I don't see any issue with including the EAD application with that, assuming that there's an approved I-140.
Yeah. Sudhir has this question with regards to when is he going to get the registration result from YouTube. And Sudhir, the results are expected to be anywhere from March 21st to April 1st. Is where we are expecting.
Yeah, I think they said by March 31st is what you can anticipate.
March 31st, not April 1st, sorry.
Yep. Let's see, Vivek wanted to know if there are any updates on the current H-4 EAD litigation and what's the process for new litigation. So we are filing every 2 weeks, so we've got, I don't even know how many current litigation lawsuits we have going on, because each of them kind of have a 60-day period after we file them. But we've been very successful in getting the vast majority of the H-4 and EADs approved within 60 days of filing each individual lawsuit. So every 2 weeks we do file that on a Friday. The week prior, we start gathering new applications to include in the litigation. So you can reach out to our litigation team, litigation@rnlawgroup.com, or you can send an email to info@rnlawgroup.com. We have you fill out a questionnaire, provide us with the H-1B approval or the L-1 approval, I-140 approval, the I-765 receipt notice, I-539 receipt notice, and any additional information we need about your situation. Once we have all of that, we add you into the lawsuit and then file it, usually, like I said, on a Friday, and within 60 days we should expect to see an update on your case.
Vivek has this interesting question with the elections this year streamlining, and assuming that the new government takes into place, will all the non-immigrant visas and green card applications will be fast processed? That didn't happen when Obama administration came in. I have to tell you that. In fact, actually, when Bush administration came in, he actually expedited the process. I remember it was in 2000 the process was expedited. So it's not like when the Democrats come in, they're going to just expedite all those things. That is not true. And the other thing is that as far as the green card is concerned, how long it's going to take to get the green card, it has nothing to do with this administration at all. The length of the process of the green card, because of the priority date, is written by the Congress, that is the Parliament. So that has to be changed by the Parliament. So this administration, when the administration comes in, it's just the president changes, the Parliament remains the same. The Parliament need to change the law, and that is called Congress here. They need to change the law. And right now, the way the politics are, They are not doing anything. Just to tell you an example of it, they haven't passed a budget in the past 10 years. Can you believe that? In past 10 years, there's no budget passed by this Congress. So for them to pay attention on the green card and change the entire law, it looks to be very, it's not going to happen. I've been fighting for this from the time I've been an immigration lawyer, still there for 23 years, nothing happened. However, I have to say that the Senate 386 bill is a very good one because it doesn't address the entire immigration. It's a small little thing that can be tweaked in at any point of time. I want you guys to keep focus. It's not increasing the number of green cards. It's not doing anything. All it's doing is, it's not doing anything major. It's just taking away the discrimination. It's not increasing the numbers. It's not decreasing the numbers. So I want you guys to keep fighting on the Senate 386 bill. That is the best thing that you guys can do at this point of time.
Sukesh from Facebook is currently working on H-4 EAD, but also has an H-1B approval for consular processing with the same employer, and wants to know if he changes employers, can he use that H-1B consular processing to be CAP exempt? Unfortunately, no. Because it's a different employer, the only way to use that and be considered no longer subject to the CAP is to go and get that H-1B visa stamp and come back to the U.S. in H-1 status.
Because this question, when would the U.S. do the skilled immigration policy like Australia and Canada? I've been seeing this bill in one form or the other, as I said, from the time I've been an immigration lawyer, not exactly 23, 24 years ago. For about 20 years I've been seeing this bill. At this point of time, if you're going to ask me that if something is going to come out in the next 2 years, I would say less than 1% chance for that to come out and get it passed in the parliament.
Sam from YouTube wants to know if the L2 EAD is also eligible for the litigation we're talking about. His case was received in the beginning of December and is still pending. Yes, we can include L2 extensions and L2 EAD extensions in the same lawsuit with H4 EADs as long as it's been pending for 30 days, which yours has, and the L1 extension has already been approved. One other question Sandy had on these long processing times for just the H4 extension is what are the options if the H1 extension has already been approved? You can always get the H4 visa stamped using the approved H1 extension. So you go to the consulate, apply for a new H4 stamp, and come back in. When you enter, you'll be granted a new I-94 card that extends your H4 stay until the end of the new H1 approval notice. So that would be the other way to speed up the processing of the H4 is to forego the pending extension and just get the visa stamped instead.
Ramki has this question. Can his spouse continue working on H4 EAD after he converted from H4 to L1 visa? Ramki, the answer unfortunately is no, because you are now no longer maintaining the H1B. She cannot work on H4 EAD. Obviously, I'm already assuming she filed for the L2 plus EAD application. Based on that, she cannot work. She cannot work on H4 EAD because you're not on H1B anymore.
Let's see.
Bimshi has this question, interesting. What can you explain more about the public charge, though? I think so. I've heard either question by her or somebody else before that they did not enroll in the healthcare policy. They missed the deadline. Will that be a problem in the public charge? The answer is no. It will not be any problem for the public charge. What we described earlier in the description, where the I-944 form was about when you are filing the adjustment of status as a final green card application, you need all that paperwork is required. As far as the general rule, Bimshi, that we are concerned, me and Emily is concerned, I would say that about 0.1% of the people will be affected, our clients. Mm-hmm. Only, I've noticed one guy, and he, in my practice, he faked it, saying that he's a U.S. citizen and took food stamps from Missouri. Yeah, those kind of people will definitely be. But if you did not enroll in the healthcare, in the health insurance policy? No, I don't think so. That will be any issue whatsoever at all in your public charge thing.
Anand from YouTube says his post-completion OPT application is going to be filed in March. He already has a job offer and he wants to know if that employer can file the H-1B application on his behalf. Yes, it's not required that you already be working for the company in order for them to sponsor your H-1. So if they have a job offer for you, they can register for you in the lottery. It has no impact on the OPT application.
Sukesh from Facebook has this question. Can you file an EB1 or EB2 if you're working on the H4 EAD? The answer is yes, you can. A lot of people get confused that if they're in the H4 EAD, they can't file for the green card. Only H1Bs and L1s can file the green card. That is absolutely not true. H4 EADs can file for the green card application. We do that a lot of times when people move from H1, they're about to complete the H1, they move to H4 EAD. And then we have them I-140 approved, and if they want to come back to H-1B, they can come back to H-1B.
Nagarjuna from YouTube says his employer is filing the H-1B for this year, and he wants to know if he can change the work location with that same employer. So this new location is within the same metropolitan area, less than 30 miles from the old location. There's a risk there, and it all depends on the timing as well. I mean, if you know this location change is going to happen before June 30th, you could delay your H-1 petition filing, assuming you're selected in the lottery, until you've moved to the new location and file based on the new location. If you file based on the old location, even though it's within the same statistical area, there's a chance USCIS in a request for evidence could say, well, you know, maybe that initial job didn't exist, maybe it was speculative. So you really have to have good documentation that both jobs were valid jobs and intended to work there for the full 3-year period requested on the H-1.
Magil has this interesting question which people need to know, is that when Magil has moved from one company to another company, Magil's spouse is working on H-4 EAD. Since the person moved from company A to company B, can the spouse continue working on the H-4 EAD? Yes, they can. In the previous scenario, the person moved from H-1 to L-1. They cannot work, the spouse cannot work. In the situation where you move from company A to company B, but still in the same H-1B, the H-4 plus EAD, assuming the validity is still there, they can continue working. Absolutely they can.
Vikas from Facebook has an interesting question. His H-1B max out date is September 2020. The perm just got an audit. The perm was filed 360 days before the 6-year limit, not 365. And he wants to know if he's going to be eligible for the 7th year extension while the perm is still pending. So there's a way that you can be, but based on the information as of this moment, no, you're not eligible because the perm was not filed 365 days before you hit your 6-year limit. However, you can take a 6-day vacation anytime between now and September 2020 outside the US, come back in, file an extension to recapture those 6 days, and then you meet the 365-day requirement, so you can add the 7th year extension on top of that. So you have to take a strategic vacation to make that work.
And sometimes, if you don't have a passport stamping, you can even go to Mexico for 1 week. Go to Cancun and have some nice fish and margaritas for 1 week and come back. Please make sure that you document that you are in Mexico, and you come back, you'll be in a good shape. Prashik has this question, is that can I change the employer without getting the H-1B stamping? Assuming that you already have a H-1B approval with the passport, assuming that you have the H-1B approval with the I-94, you can change to a different employer without getting the stamping. Absolutely you can.
AK from YouTube wants to know if he can go for H-1 stamping for the first time in Canada, even though he's never had the H-1 stamped before in his home country. So technically, yes, especially if you are a student in the U.S., you have a master's degree from a U.S. university. Canadian consulates are familiar with U.S. degrees, so they should be able to issue that visa if you can get an interview appointment there, assuming you didn't come in on a B1 or B2 visa.
Mumtaz has filed an adjustment of status, and based on that, she got an EAD renewal, EAD. And now she has applied for the renewal of the EAD. Can she work on the EAD renewal for up to 180 days if she didn't receive the approval? The answer to it is that if the EAD extension is pending for the adjustment of status 485 application, yes, you can work up to 180 days. The extension must have been filed before the EAD expires. You can work until 180 days. And I want to reiterate, this is only for adjustment of status. If this is for H4 EAD, no. If the EAD expires, you cannot work. You have to wait until the EAD is approved.
Selva Kumar recently transferred the H1 from employer A to employer B, and his wife's H4 was already valid until 2022, and he wants to know if he should now file the H4 for his wife because he's with a different company, and what if employer A withdraws the H1B. So it's not mandatory for her to file an H4 simply because you've transferred. Her H4 status remains valid until 2022 as long as you're maintaining your H1 status with any employer. So even if employer A goes back and withdraws your approved H1 petition, the H4 still remains valid. You do have to remember that her H4 validity period is probably shorter than your new H1 validity period, so make sure you don't accidentally miss filing her extension since you'll have different dates. Another question on that, McGill from YouTube wanted to know if he files for an H1 for a different client or with a different employer, can his spouse continue to use the same H4 EAD, or is it required for her to apply for a new one? She can continue to use the same H4 EAD. It remains valid until it expires, even if you've changed employers.
Arun has this question. The H1B has been approved for a CAP subject. Now he moved to a CAP exempt H1B. Can I come back to a different employer who is CAP subject without going through the lottery system? You can, absolutely. Once you're being counted towards a cap, that's it. You don't have to be counted again unless you have used up the 6 years and you have not got the I-140 approval. Otherwise, once it's been selected in the lottery, you got the H1 approval, you moved, you can always come back. Absolutely no problem with it.
Vivek from YouTube wants to know, what is the easiest path for getting a green card?
I've seen that. I want to answer it.
Okay, go ahead.
Vivek, honestly, the easiest way of getting the green card is applying the Canadian green card. I don't know if you were to apply the U.S. immigration right now there are different theories how long it's going to get it. We predicted in February 2018 that it's going to be 108 years. Then Cato Institution comes and tells us that, oh, it's not 108 years, it's going to be 150 years. And there is, and they, in that calculation, when we did in February 2018, we did not estimate people are going to die. We did not estimate the kids are going to apply for the green card. But then Cato Institute used the same analogy and said we are wrong by 42 years. It's not 108 years, it's 150 years. That's what they said. So if I were you, if you want to get the green card and want to stay in this North American continent, I would just get a green card in Canada, which we both are not. We don't, our law office doesn't process those things. Please don't ask that question. A lot of people come. We don't, but that's the best way. You have any other way?
No, I totally agree, unfortunately. Arun from YouTube wants to know if his H-1B is approved with a CAP subject employer and then he moves to a CAP exempt employer, can he later go back to a CAP subject employer, a different one, without going through the lottery again? The answer to that is yes. Once you've been counted, you are considered counted and don't have to go through the lottery again as long as you have time left in your 6-year limit.
Vijay Prakash has this question though. Can the employer withdraw the EAD and AP renewal application filed with the USCIS? No, they cannot. It's your application. Your employer doesn't have any right on it. There seems to be that a little bit discontent between you and your employer. And if you, I'm assuming that your I-140 has been approved and it's been more than 180 days, and your 485 application is more than 180 days. Otherwise, why would you go for a renewal? If you want to move to a different company, you can move. There is an application called 485J supplement. You can use that to file it. It's very, very simple and easy application. You can file and move to a different. No, your employer or your lawyer cannot withdraw your EAD and AP without your written consent. They cannot.
Venkata from Facebook wants to know if a person whose H-1B has been denied, they go back to their home country and come back to the U.S. on H-4, are they eligible to file an H-1B transfer with another company? Kind of. So it's not an H-1B transfer. And this is assuming that the H-1B that was denied was not a cap subject H-1B that was filed in the lottery. You have to have first been counted in the cap. So let's say you've been on H-1B for 3 years, you filed your extension or you filed a transfer and that got denied. You left, got an H-4 stamp because your spouse is also in H-1 status and came back. Once you're here in H-4 status, another employer or the same employer can file a change of status back to H-1B without going through the lottery. You'll probably need to file it in premium processing because you can't start working for that company until the change of status is actually approved. It's not considered a transfer. You can't work for the company based on the pending H-1B.
The question, Krishna Kumar, is that this 944 form, is it only for the new applications or for the existing applications as well? Wow. Right now, it's only for the new applications. We don't have to file it for the existing applications that are already pending, Krishna. However, I doubt that they may issue an RFE at a later date and ask for the I-944 application. We have seen that in all cases, every case, for the 485J supplement which came in afterwards, they have issued an RFE and they asked us, but it until Krishna asked, I did not utter to my mind that they may ask, so we may have to go back to our clients and ask them to be prepared for the 944. Thanks for reminding, Krishna. It's, Facebook and YouTube, these live sessions that we conduct, it's not just sometimes we tell you, we also learn from you. That's a good question. I do think so that they may issue an RFE and ask for the 944. At this point of time, you don't have to voluntarily do it, but Krishna Kumar, you may want to prepare yourself to submit it and prepare the application. There's a good chance for that.
Mm-hmm. McGill from YouTube has an H-1B RFE that was responded to last Monday in premium processing, but the online case status has still not changed. It still says request for additional evidence is sent. So we do see from time to time that the online case status never changes, so that could be the issue, or it could be an issue that something happened to the package. What I typically do in that situation as the attorney is I email the premium processing unit with the tracking number showing that it's been delivered and ask them to confirm that they received it. And usually they email back within a day or two with that confirmation, or if there was a problem, they let me know that for some reason they don't have it and we have to resubmit it.
Vivek has this question, how much do we charge for the litigation? I would recommend to drop an email. We don't discuss the fees on YouTube, correct fees on the YouTube. We can give an estimate, but please drop an email. Tejasri has this question that in the premium processing, is it allowed in the 2021 lottery? As of now, there's no indication they will not allow. We're expecting it to be allowed, but there may be further updates on that. Aishwarya has this question. Her father has visited USA. The passport stamping says that expires on 5/10/2020. The I-94 is admitted until 8/11/2020. What should be taken serious? Is it 5/10/2020 or August 11/2020? It is the I-94 that you should take it seriously. Not seriously, I mean, that is it. It's very clear that the I-94 will dictate the terms of your father's visit. Sometimes it's an error, sometimes we see it. If the B2 has been done beyond 6 months of your dad coming into the country, then I would not rely on that. But I'm assuming that your dad has come in probably January 11th, 12th, somewhere around that period of time, then 8/11/2020 is good because as they give 6 months, and I-94 is to be taken very seriously, not the passport stamp.
All right, well, I think we're about out of time for today. So thank you all so much for joining us and asking your questions. We'll be back next Tuesday at 5 o'clock Central Time. If you didn't get your question answered, you can always join one of our daily conference calls. Go to rnlawgroup.com, click on conference call, and you'll be able to get the dial-in information for that. It's free. You can also send us an email to info@rnlawgroup. If you'd like more specific information about your case, you can set up a consultation with us or any of our attorneys here at Reddy Neumann PC by going to rnlawgroup.com and clicking on consultation.
Thank you, guys.